Welcome to the Mentally a Badass podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things today. Like you mentioned that you used to be a social media manager and you were burnt out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, same. I mean, I still am, but like, I can't wait to chat about that. I'm also the black sheep of the family. And I just want to just learn so much from you today. So let's dive in. I do want to hear your experience of being a social media manager. How long were you a social media manager for?
I was a social media manager for 3.5 years and I worked for my family's business. So that was the cherry on top of the cake.
What was your family's business?
We used to own a winery in the central coast of California. It's called Daou Vineyards or Daou Vineyards. I don't know why I thought it was something different. No, it's still Daou Vineyards. And sometimes it was like Dow Family Vineyards. I don't know. But yeah, my dad and my uncle started it. And I worked hospitality for a couple years. And then I had an opportunity to go into digital marketing. And I had zero social media experience before that. I had actually deleted Instagram for the year before that because I was so over it. And then
Yeah.
they gave me this opportunity and I was like, you know what? Hell yeah. Let's do it. Like, let's go. This could be so fun. And it was so fun until it wasn't.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people also like. I mean, I'm the same way. I was like, oh, yeah, I got my first clients. It's gonna be great. And like the first like 6 months, it's like, yeah, awesome. I get to make social media my job. And people on the outside, they look at social media managers or just anybody who works in social media, period. They think that our job is so easy. I still see that. I mean, like we can talk about the whole thing last week about the TikTok. I saw so many people really looking down at like content creators, thinking that like, we don't do much and such. So when you were experiencing burnout, like did you go down like having like waking up with like so much anxiety and depression or just get like frustrated by like the algorithm?
My biggest struggle in all areas of life, career, relationships was that the downside of managing social media account with, you know, at the time 40,000 plus people for a brand that my name is on was not being present. I wasn't able to be present with people, with myself, because I was always looking for the next shot, always thinking of the next best idea, always trying to keep up with the trends, always trying to be ahead of the curve, always trying to bring some innovative idea to the table of people who weren't millennials. And luckily, my boss was a millennial. So he was like, let's do all these cool things. And we had a wine podcast called The Thirsty. And there was so much like blocking with like the things that we wanted to do because, well, that's a whole different topic, I guess. But there was just so much that we couldn't do that it's almost like the hustle of social media became so important that I couldn't be present in my life.
Oh my gosh, I want to talk more about that because I was actually thinking about that today. So I think we're like sharing the same brain because, like I mentioned, I'm currently doing that. And then when it comes to like planning content, we have to always like plan it in advance, like a month in advance or 2 month advance, depending on, you know, what the deal is, I guess, with your client and such. But I think about that too, like how important it is to plan content so you're not like just posting random stuff and you actually have a strategy in place. But I totally understand what you're saying. Like it's so hard to be present. It's kind of like you always have to think about the future so you don't like spiral.
Yeah, you're always spiraling in your head. Is this going to be good enough? Is this going to go viral? Is this going to, and it's like, whoa. And
Yeah.
it's like the hard thing with social media working for a brand is whether it's your own or whether it's, another person's brand is that there's always expectations that people want you to go viral without spending any money.
Oh my God. I
Or
could talk a lot
people
about that.
want you to like do the biggest coolest stuff and it's like, yo, it's 2020 whatever it is. Like people are paying for this stuff. Like you want to go viral and get like 1 million views on something, you're either really effing lucky
Uh huh.
or you pay for it. You pay. I mean, everyone pays for things, and it's hard to have authentic relationships with people in social media or have authentic social media presence sometimes because social media is the antithesis of presence and authenticity.
Yeah, and when you're saying that, like, people have this expectation of like, oh, I'm gonna hire you, you're gonna make me go viral, right? Like, I've literally have had clients tell me that they're like, okay, we need to go to viral, and I'm like, yes, let me just click the button, like, and I'm like, in my head, I'm just like, I want to like respond back, like, okay, like it's not how it works, but also, you have to stay professional. And so I said, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. So I have an idea of we can a pay for ads or two work closely with a huge influencer, if you know what I mean. So it's like if you either way you're spending money.
Either
You know
way,
what
you're
I mean?
spending money, and either way, you are compromising sometimes morals and values to get
Hmm.
the shot, the deal, the whatever it is. At least that's what I felt in my experience.
I would literally just wake up with anxiety, or we just constantly. I used to have this bad habit where I like check like as soon as I post it, like 2 minutes later, my viral like. But it's kind of crazy though. It's like that got into our head, and it had a lot to do with like TikTok, how people anyone could just like go viral.
I have to tell you something hilarious about TikTok,
Go
okay?
for it.
My TikTok is my main source of social media. I'm actually on an Instagram hiatus right now because energetically I can't deal with what's going on with Meta. I'm like, I can't. I need a break.
Yeah, same.
So TikTok comes back, whatever, and I'm like, cool, great, we can keep the momentum going because authentic audiences live on TikTok. People want to be in community there. I don't feel that way with Instagram. I post my own podcast. I post replies to people. I mean, I am very active on my TikTok, and I have some videos that go viral about certain things, but
Hmm.
I feel like I'm putting meaningful content out into the world. Sometimes it takes a hot second to get traction. 2 weeks ago, I am walking in Target and I see a girl take a cup, like a Stanley cup, from the aisle,
Hmm.
start chewing on the straw, and then put it back. So I whipped out my phone and I recorded a literal 10-second video of like, wash your shit when you're in Target because this is what I just saw. 700,000 views,
Huh.
thousands of comments. I'm like, that's what it takes to go viral. Like the dumbest thing ever. But it's
Yes.
like, it's not dumb. Like, it's just weird how the whole social media world works.
I went viral. One time I had like a 2.5 million views on a TikTok video about like 2 years ago. And okay, so it is okay, let me explain it because I feel like it depends who's listening. They may think it's funny or they may think like, okay, it's weird. Okay. So pretty much I was around that time frame, I felt like I was like kind of like a gypsy, like flying in different states for like a good month. Like I was pretty much living out of a suitcase, right? And then my aunt unfortunately passed away. So I literally went from coming back, I live in Florida, coming back to Florida for like 2 days, finding out that my aunt passed away, who's in Jersey, and I literally just came from Jersey. And then we had to like jump back on a plane, and then we were actually like late for the wake because of the traffic and everything. I literally me and my mom, we actually like was rolling in with our luggage into a wake. So that was kind of like the funny part. It's like, of course, like we're here, like walking, like showing up
Oh
fashionably
my
late
God.
with our luggage, right? And the thing is like I wasn't there. I wasn't like trying to make a video. My dad just randomly took a video, like without me even realizing it. My dad was in the parking lot. I guess he just thought it was just hilarious too. So he just took a video without me looking, without me even knowing. He shows me that video. I was like, oh my God, this looks so ridiculous. I had like my mask on. I had like a big luggage and it just looked hilarious. So I posted on TikTok and I put like what I just told you, 2.5 million views.
It's the weirdest stuff. I don't know why it is, but I do like that at TikTok, it does prioritize authentic, real content. And I think that's
True.
what people like about it.
Yeah, absolutely. When Reels first came out, I was actually posting my TikToks to my Instagram, and those were going like semi-viral. Like I was getting like an easy like 30,000, 40,000, and it was very authentic because I mean, as having like a whole mental health brand and me having my own like childhood trauma and just like I'm a person where I cope with humor, and that's also a big part of the brand. Is that like even though mental health topics are very serious, we just like to throw in a little humor there, just to kind of lighten the mood. So I have like I have bipolar disorder and BPD. So, a lot of people who live with those disorders feel alone that they can't talk about it and such. So I would post certain content that's like kind of like a meme in a way, but like video. So I just did that, not expecting anything, and it was doing so well. And I'm just like, oh, there's a need for this. But of course, the algorithm changed a million times. And now it's like, I'll get lucky if I get 2,000 views.
Yeah,
Hate it.
I can't. I need a break from it. I'm on a break with Instagram right now. I'm like, I can't see the same audio and the same video and the same comment
Yeah.
cycle. If you want, I'm like, I just
What is your take on threads?
I think I love the idea of innovation and keeping up with what's cool, but
Yeah.
let X be X and just let Instagram be Instagram, let
Yeah.
TikTok be TikTok. Like
Yeah.
let them have their niche.
Yeah.
Because if they all got in the same room instead of fighting with each other on like who has the better algorithm or who has it, just own your shit and let people use all the platforms and have a need for each one.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally agree with you. Even like Snapchat is starting to be like all the other platforms because they saw obviously a lot of people enjoying short form content because literally our attention span is like 3 seconds and we can't watch like long, like literally every single social media platform is doing short form. And I recently just downloaded Snapchat again after like 3 years. Oh my gosh, Kat, it's so different. Have you by any chance been on Snap? Okay.
No, I am exhausted at the thought of downloading Snapchat. That was like, I think the last time I used Snapchat was like 6 years ago. And I used to just watch the Taste Made videos, how they have the little channels.
That
I
was
used to
such a good
love,
time.
I don't
So
even know.
happy.
That's
Where did it
my,
go? Yeah.
I don't know. I have no clue.
Oh, those are my favorite. They were just so happy. It was just so like I missed like the old social media. Now everybody is just, especially the last like what year are we in now? Like 8 years. It's just been chaos. Like especially this week, I've just been muting everybody
Yeah. Well,
just to
today,
protect my inner peace.
1,000,000%. Today I was scrolling TikTok a little bit and people were saying you have to block Facebook and Instagram on TikTok to reorganize your algorithm because I wasn't seeing anything about the fires or like the UAPs or anything and like all the stuff that I was following. Soon as I did that, first video was a fire video. I'm like, what is happening? We're all just like feeding into like this weird like algorithm that's like running our lives and like
Yes.
there's people out there who are putting out real helpful supportive content about things and they're not getting pushed out. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had this intuitive hit for a while and it's a conversation I shared on my podcast with my friend Jennifer Addition on like energy updates for the end of last year and then 2025, and it's really we're coming into a cycle of the end of the celebrity and the end of the influencer.
Mm.
The people that have been kind of working in the shadows of social media will start to fall apart a bit. And the people that are really the healers, the light workers, the energy workers, the people who are authentic, the people who are here to spread love and do good with their content, those are the people that are going to be lifted up, but just in different ways on different platforms. And I can't tell you how many people in my circle, in my world, that are in the spiritual space have taken a break from Instagram or TikTok altogether because it's just not feeling aligned for us anymore.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. And I actually posted on my Instagram story because you know how everyone just like keeps fighting each other based off of like any article they see and they're reading it and they're taking like their own like opinion on it, their own take. I mean, honestly, I do not trust all this media. They have their own narrative. And so I keep looking and I'm just like, everyone's just at each other. I'm like, why can't we just like, I feel like the best way to like get back out of government is for us to just learn to get along. Because you know what I mean? Like,
What
everyone
a
has their own
concept.
opinion, but that's the thing that most people aren't willing to like, sit down and listen to other people's opinion. But anyway, I'm trying my best to not go political. That's
The last couple of months, I have been so angry and on edge
mm,
and like prickly, like don't prickle me because I'm going to prickle back. Like it's been really prickly lately. I think we're just going through like a really big energetic upgrade right now.
yeah.
I don't know how energetically versed your community is, but I feel like for me it's been really interesting to watch this kind of battle that's happening in our world right now.
Yeah. I'm actually glad that you were open about that and brought that up for the last couple of months because since I was feeling like that too, I was having moments of feeling like mad at myself. You know, like why am I thinking this way? Why am I acting this way? Because at the end of the day, I do want to, share positivity and give love and just like overall just be happy and live in like, a happy world. Well, at least we try our best. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're gonna definitely talk more going into like spiritual. I think that's also very important and energy. But I do want to first talk about, 'cause I really want to touch on this today, is about like the feeling of being the black sheep of the family. I
Yeah.
feel like we can talk a lot about that because I personally felt like that. Like, can you tell me like the feelings you had growing up?
Yeah, I would say that I didn't really even realize that I was the black sheep of my family until about college.
Mhm.
And it wasn't this like lovely discovery where I was like, I'm the black sheep. It was painful. And it was me realizing and recognizing the stark differences in me and my family.
Mhm.
For better for worse, by the way. This is not a like an ego statement of like I'm better than them and that's why I'm the black sheep. I've actually totally turned that on its head. For better or for worse, for positive and negative reasons, I feel very different from my family. But the root of that is belonging.
Mhm.
And I think that we're going through a really interesting epidemic right now of belonging. The negative effects of belonging and what happens when we don't feel like we belong. We have never been a more hyper independent society. We have never felt less communal. We have never felt more controlled and taken advantage of. We have never had more trust issues than we do now. These are all things that go against our very primal instinctual nature of being communal beings, people
Mhm.
that need other people, that need to rely on others. Everyone has a role, everyone belongs to the community, everybody has a sense of trust and care and love for each other. We don't have that right now. And that's being put on a massive pedestal. And so, what I've noticed is that for me and a lot of clients and people that I speak to and work with, the black sheep always feels a little different or big different, and they don't know if they belong. And so my work in belonging work and the black sheep is really to show people that sure, you may be the black sheep of your family, you may, but I think black sheep has a really negative connotation. My intention is to help people see that they don't have to be a black sheep. They can rather spin it on its head and look at it from a much more evolutionary perspective that they're actually here to be a cycle breaker. And the
Mhm.
things that you don't like about your family that are repeating in the family system, from little things to big things, you can break that cycle at any time. It's about taking radical responsibility for your life, showing up for yourself, leaning into your healing journey, dropping the ego, being heart-centered, willing to see the world through different eyes. And it's a whole journey to be a cycle breaker. And so for people who identify themselves as black sheep, I go, sure, that may be your identity right now, but what is the opportunity we have to view that in a more positive light while still belonging to your family system? Because you belong regardless of if you fit in. Brene Brown says belonging is not the same thing as fitting in. And that kind of was a mind fuck for me for a while because I wanted to fit in with my family so badly.
Mhm.
And the more I tried to fit in with them, the more different I felt. It was almost like staring in a mirror. And then I realized, what if I'm just meant to be different, but I'm still a part of this family? How is that going to change my role in it? And the more I started to accept it, the more at peace I became. And I stopped needing everybody to fill all my needs. I stopped this desperation for meeting my expectations, started to soften. I definitely have my moments still. I'm human, but for the most part, there is more peace in I belong to this family because I exist, but I don't
Mhm.
need to fit in to get love. And that's a really hard journey to go on.
Absolutely. I was just gonna like bring up and ask about, because at least for me, I feel like I'm still going through that. I haven't like fully healed from that. Like, I've just accepted that I am different from my family. Like, I'm so different. If you like meet my family, you'll say. And but there's still moments where I feel like I'm fully just not accepted by them. I mean, with my parents, I do feel accepted, but like other people, I feel like they look at me and think I'm like crazy. Like, I'm the only one in the family who is so big on mental health and so big at like talking about childhood trauma. Like, my family is like all about kind of like keep to yourself. Like, why are you putting that on the internet? Like, I've even had like a cousin who would like tell my dad, "Wow, she posted this," and it's like they don't they don't get it. And I thought that it was because maybe because I was like younger, because like I mean, it's not too much of a difference, 4 to 6 years. As you were saying, I really think I'm that cycle breaker. And then that kind of hurt me growing up because I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt left out constantly. And that definitely had a huge impact on me because I'm 29 years old and I guess I can't say subconsciously if I'm telling you right now, because I guess consciously, it's like I still feel like I have behaviors where I feel like I need to fit in. If I'm seeing my family after, I don't know, a couple of months, and we're just talking about like our lives, like I feel like I need to say something that, I'm the only one who, I just realized I'm the only one who's not married. I'm the only one who's not married. I mean, I do have a boyfriend, but marriage, and that wasn't like my top priority. Like I'm very career driven and such. And I've always had, like, oh, you're gonna get like a boyfriend, or when are you gonna have kids? Like I've gotten stuff like that. And I feel like the people who ask me, I think in their head, they're like, oh, just messing with you. They always do that too. They always do that. So just like all of that experience, and even when I'm at like a family gathering, it's like, what do I have in common with them? You know what I mean? And I don't talk to my cousins really. There's one cousin that I do talk with, and like she's really the only one because she's the one who really truly like actually makes an effort. So I think she's kind of like a little bit of a black sheep to an extent, but I know using these words, I don't, trying to not use it as much, but it kind of feels a little lonely. Like, do you think that?
It's very lonely. And there are certain parts of our psyche when we are born when our souls come into these little baby bodies and we're at the mercy of the people who are taking care of us. The expectation is that all of our needs will be met, and that will be, when we cry, when we're hungry, we'll be fed, and all of those things. And the reality is that we're born into families that are imperfect, to imperfect people. And that when we get older in our development as a child, we start to separate from ourselves and our true self, our true soul, our true sense of who we are, to get love and connection. And so
Mm,
the farther we abandon from ourselves and into our family systems, the more we enmesh ourselves into our family system. We can then create identities around our family system. Our family system will be our identity, not, well, I'm this, beautiful person who's talking about mental health, and everyone respects my role in the family system, and everyone realizes that I'm not trying to out anyone or make people angry. Like I'm just trying to be, like if you're rooted in your purpose and that's what you're here to be, but your family system can't respect and honor that role, it feels very lonely. And
mm-hmm,
so you continue, I don't mean you, I mean, we will continue to give our authenticity away in order to get that need for belonging met.
mm-hmm.
And ultimately, then many of us wake up at any age in our lives. Sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes people do it at the end of their life, and they go, man, I didn't even live my life for me. I've been living it for everybody else because I felt like I didn't belong.
Yeah. When was the time where you decide like, okay, I need to work on healing from that? 'Cause I feel like I don't know if you're using the right word, but I guess I'm kind of asking for advice since I'm still in that position. I'm trying so hard to not give away like my authentic, why can't I pronounce it? Authentic self? To give away my authentic self to please my family, to feel love and to not feel lonely. Like, I guess, what can I do? You know what I mean?
I know the question very well because I have thought about that question, and I still continue to think about that question because as we evolve as humans, our relationship to our families also evolve. Everyone's just constantly evolving.
Yeah.
But what I would say is to start in you. Make it less about the people around you in the beginning. I would recommend taking a pen and a paper or a journal and writing down your favorite parts of what makes you feel like you, what brings you joy, what makes you feel authentic, what makes you feel lit up, what makes you feel connected to yourself. And then keep that list and know what your boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if there's a dysfunctional relationship in the family system and you are not clear on who you are and what your boundaries are, you will continue to give yourself away. So the first thing is to start the discovery of knowing yourself intimately, deeply, and truthfully. And sometimes that means being honest with ourselves and going, God, I keep continuing that relationship with my uncle, let's just say, because I really want his validation and approval. But that's not really authentic. That's not a real relationship.
Yeah.
That's not on the basis of what a real intimate relationship is. And so it's about getting honest with yourself and your intentions around other people, and then getting clear on who you are. And then once you understand who you are and what's not in alignment with you, then you start to go, if I really value integrity and my
Mm-hmm.
family doesn't value integrity and they don't act in integrous ways, maybe I just need to take a step back and like be more of an observer in the family system rather than involving myself. Because what we'll do is that we'll notice that something feels off and
Mhm.
we'll either do one of two things. We'll either run from the family system and we'll like cut off contact and like try to protect ourselves. And sometimes that's for very good reason, by the way. I have to add that. But for most people, it's like run or wedge yourself into the family system and then try to enmesh more for connection. That anxious need, like, I need you to meet my needs. I need you to connect with me. I need you to validate me. I need you to make me feel like I fit in. But the practice of knowing yourself and coming back to yourself and knowing your boundaries, it gives you something to fall back on when your family cannot meet your expectations, when your family member cannot meet you in that place of you have this need and they can't get there with you. And they're probably doing the best they can with the tools they have, with the knowledge that they have. And this isn't about blame or shame because it's super low vibrational stuff that I just don't like
Mhm.
to work with.
Yeah.
I really work with the values of understanding. If you can first understand why your family is the way that they are, or that the family are the way that they are, then you start to loosen that attachment and you start to realize, oh, my mom acts like this because X, Y, and Z. And
Mhm.
you slowly start to realize that it really had nothing to do with you, how lovable you are, how worthwhile you are. I mean, it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and you really hit the nail on the whole identity thing because I do struggle with that a lot. Because like when I was younger, I was just bullied all the time, and when I was a child, so obviously that like during my brain development. So yeah, I think that's good advice. I think I really need to prioritize really understanding like who I am, and this is like something I shouldn't be doing, but I kind of like look through like my social media and I try to create this identity. Like, okay, if I'm posting being authentic, who am I? And it's like I have these moments where I'm like, I don't get who I am, and I even like ask my friends, I'm like, so like who do you think I am? Like it's so bad. Like Kat, I know it's horrible,
We
and
all
I'm
do it.
yeah, and so I need to sit down. I need to think and understand my own identity because I was given an identity when I was young and it's not good. Like I remembered three words that I was always told when I was a child and it was like ugly, stupid and weird. Those were like the three words. So it's like when you're constantly being told that from like the kids at school and family and such, it's like that's the identity I built and I felt like it held me back from so many opportunities. Like when I was in high school, freshman year, I did absolutely nothing when it came to like I had my grades weren't good. My like I didn't do the play or didn't do any sports. It's because I carried that identity with me that I'm like a failure and that like, oh, I'm stupid, so I must fail all my tests. And you know what's crazy too is that this was all subconscious. Like I don't think I woke up one day and was like, okay, they called me an idiot, so I gotta go be an idiot. Isn't that so crazy? But yeah, with all of that, childhood wounds and all that pain, like I am now like as I talk to so many people on this podcast, it really helps me so much to really like, okay, this is a wound right here that I really need to work on. And it's like I'm so big on always saying like, yeah, internally we have to work on ourselves. Like that's the most important thing. Before we go out and help others in this like world or whatever, and we need to like work on ourselves because if we're so angry inside and like you said, like the whole like low vibration with the blaming and the shame, because I see a lot of that and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of blaming, there's a lot of shaming. And I am starting to just like, if I see it, okay, whatever. That's what they know. That's their tools. Like I just gotta work on that myself and I just mute them too. But
Well, the greatest thing you can do, I think, is know your values, right? Because your
exactly.
values are foundational to you and your belief system, and that's a huge part of our identity. And Brené Brown, second time I'm bringing her up, she has a great values list that you can
Mhm.
look up online. Just type in to Google Brené Brown value list, and you go through and you circle the top 5 ones that you feel you really are really called to you. And then your job after that is to become so intimately connected with those values in your own life that and living them truly through your life and your work, even if it's uncomfortable, that when you're around people that don't have those same values, you know they're not part of your tribe.
Yeah.
And the hard part is that most of the people in our family will not be part of our soul family or our tribe.
Is
Most
that
of the
crazy?
people most of the people in our lives, you've got in our family systems, you've got 1, 2, maybe 3 at most sometimes people who are in your family system who are guides or people that really you have a deep instinctual connection with.
Hmm.
I'm not saying you haven't had other lives or other experiences with other family members. I mean, your makeup, obviously, you must, but there, I find that there's really 1, 2, 3. I think 3 is probably an intuitively good number of people you just feel like you're like, yeah, they get me and I'm safe with them and we're tight. But our sweet little survival brains need everyone's validation and approval. And we're scared that if one person doesn't give us that validation and approval, even if the 20 others do, we have to prove that we're good enough to that one person. And that one person might not have the same values as you, or have the same integrity as you, or have the same authenticity desire as you. That person may have a lot of trauma that blocks them from having intimate relationships. Like, we don't know everyone's story all the time. And that's why I think understanding is a really valuable tool or value,
Hmm.
because it allows us to take a step back and become more of an observer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then yeah, if they're not sharing the same values, there's a lot of a story behind it. No one really, I feel like people don't like to care to hear someone's story. They just automatically see their behavior and then they shut it down. But I like, for me and for you, I like to definitely ask these questions and try to understand, like, okay, I definitely don't agree with this certain belief and value, but like, let me try to understand how you got there. Because I
Yeah.
feel like that's so important. And I've even like, I've had really good conversations with people, and like those are the people like are willing to also listen, but I try to stay away from people who just bark at me, which is not really, I don't have energy for that. Like, I'm all about like having a good conversation, understand people's side, but once you throw like a curse word at me, we're done.
Well, but so then you value respect.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's a pretty normal value for a healthy, loving relationship. I'll never forget, I was never good at conflict. Never. I would shut down, cry, freak out. Like, I'd feel so uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I learned how to have really healthy conflict in my relationship with my fiance. We have really healthy conflict. We work things out. We have a very healthy relationship. And so I recently was in a familial experience in conflict with some people. And I said something like, well, we can have conflict and I know that you'll still love me, thinking that I'm dealing with people who also know how to have nonviolent communication.
Hmm.
Wrong, wrong. I did not use discernment. I walked right into the fire of
Hmm.
very unhealthy conflict and communication. And so we have to be discerning and mindful that when we start to apply our values to certain relationships, that we are conscious that we are also engaging with someone who values those same things too. And here's the thing,
Hmm.
sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we learn by experience. I learned by experience. Now I know those people, they don't have the same values as I have when it comes to conflict. I'm going to take the space I need and I'm going to reevaluate within myself how I need to show up differently next time because I left my body. But sometimes that's how we learn, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes the best lessons that we learn are through the mistakes that we make, and we have to
Yeah.
just have grace for ourselves. But yeah, I mean, it's you just getting clear with your values. It really helps you navigate life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's another thing too with like relationships, as you were saying. It's like making sure that you're with somebody who does share the value when it comes to communicating. So it's like if me and my boyfriend, we have like a problem, we know to not be like screaming at, like, we have rules, and so we don't like scream, we don't curse at each other or anything like that. And if it does happen, like, we call each other out on it, because sometimes she's just in the heat of the moment, you know what I mean. But I think it's also, yeah, very important that when you like, I mean, I'm sure like not on your first date, you're gonna be like, okay, so this is my like,
Tell me your attachment style. What's your attachment style? Man,
oh my god, and me and my boyfriend have completely like polar opposite attachment stuff, but we had a conversation about that.
yeah,
And
very
we have
common.
boundaries and we put those boundaries in place. And if he is willing to sit down and consider like my boundaries, my feelings, and I do the same for him, like, that's a good relationship. Versus like if someone's just like listening, but what do they say? Like they're listening but not listening. I forgot the term for that. It's
They're
like they're hearing but not listening, or they're like
they're listening to talk, not listening to hear you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the conversation about generational trauma. And we did talk a little bit about that. So I guess for people who may not know what that means, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so actually, I'll refer to it in a different way. I what I do in my work is, aside from being an intuitive and a medium, I also do a work called family constellation therapy. And essentially, what we're doing is we are healing all of the unacknowledged trauma that happened in your family system, and we're looking at all the ways that that trauma may have created a pattern emotionally, energetically, or epigenetically within your physical body that you inherited.
Hmm.
And so my work is having one foot in the spiritual world and one foot in the physical, being trauma informed and understanding the mind body spirit connection. And generational healing is very, it mirrors that. You know, we're looking at you and we're looking at your biggest fear, your biggest blocks, your biggest dreams that haven't manifested. We're looking at certain patterns or behaviors that you're stuck in. Are you attracting the same kind of partner? Do you feel unworthy about, certain beliefs? We start there and we look at you because you are a mirror or a portal into understanding your family system. Some people work backwards. I prefer to work, well, maybe forwards. I work backwards because what you're really telling me and showing me is, hey, I have this block, this behavior, this belief, or this pattern, and it's mimicking what was nurtured into me from the generations before. And I always say that, like, it's not always the same thing, the THING thing that happens over each generation. It could, like addiction or something, or, abusive relationships or narcissism or whatever it is. But usually it's the same theme, the theme of loneliness, the theme of I'm not good enough, the theme of abandonment, the theme of neglect, whatever it is. That's a repeating in the family system based off of
Hmm.
that trauma. And then how it manifests within each person is nuanced and different. It also could be the same, but usually it's not.
Yeah. Can you go a little bit more into, because epigenetics is not really a term that most people know. Can you just dive a little bit more into that so people can understand?
Yeah. Epigenetics is basically a part of your DNA that, for a long time we thought whatever DNA you get, you're stuck with it. Like, I
Hmm.
inherited depression from my maternal lineage. Everyone's really struggled with depression. And my belief before I found family constellation therapy was, well, I inherited depression, so I'm always going to be depressed. And this is what I'm stuck with. And epigenetics proves that that is not the case. Just because you inherit the gene of dementia or obesity or depression or anxiety or whatever it is, even the one for addiction, you can change those. You can flip them. You can, and it's so interesting. I just had someone on my podcast come on and talk about this. Harvard did a study on two groups of individuals to study the ability to change your epigenetics, to heal your genes so that you can, grow and evolve and heal and not suffer from the trauma. And Harvard told one group of people to do some placebo effect and told the other group to meditate 3 to 4 times a week for 15 to 20 minutes for 8 weeks. They measured both of the genetics and the epigenetics of each group, and the group that did the meditation for 8 weeks healed 40% of their genes just by meditating consistently for 8 weeks. So, intergenerational healing is not just the big FCT work, it's not just the big ayahuasca, psilocybin. You can start just by meditating and teaching your nervous system how to ground itself. And when you ground yourself and you ground your nervous system, then you're able to get more in tune with who you are as a person. And then you're able to think more clearly. This is a line for me. This is not a line for me. This is what I need to do. And so we're just working off of this like cyclical mind body spirit connection that comes from living and healing from the intergenerational trauma.
Yeah. And I got to meditate more then.
It's
I
great.
yeah, I mean, I did a little bit. I was reading a book today, and it was like doing a whole exercise and meditating. So I did for a little. I did for a second. I actually did interview somebody who talked in depth about meditation. And when we think of meditation, we think of like, okay, like 5 minutes, and you're just. But apparently, she says that that's not always meditation. Like, for example, like I had like place fall on the ground, right? And typically that people will be like cursing up a storm or being pissed off, right? but I stood back and I kind of like did the whole like breathing thing and just to make sure I don't like scream. And it, it helped me get through because at the end of the day, you choose how you react. And so I told her that, like, I think it happened like that same day. And she was like, it's meditating. I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, even like that little thing that you just did, just taking a step back, you meditated. I'm like, really? And no, and not a lot of people, know about that, these little things that you do. And it's a practice.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what she said. It's like it's a practice. And she said, because I did ask her because there's some people who are saying like they think it's boring or can't focus or like, just things that society says. I like asked her that question and she was like, well, they're probably meditating and don't even realize it. It's literally just a practice. But how often do you meditate?
Sometimes twice a day, but usually once a day. I
Smart.
have a routine where I just bought this red light and I have a meditation pillow. So sometimes I'll meditate on different things, YouTube usually, or like I'll put on some frequency music and do some breath work and pull some cards, or sometimes I'll just sit and let my mind like wander. And sometimes I'll channel with my guides and kind of just talk to my spirit team and see like what I need to know for the day. But for me, like meditation is just a pausing. It's a pausing, and the reason people really don't like it is because if they were to pause, then shit, they would face their feelings, they'd face themselves. What a concept.
Yeah, the people don't want to be alone with their thoughts. That's why they people, stay busy and avoid them or drink or this or that. And yeah, meditating will put you like face to face with like all your thoughts and trauma and such. Have you ever, this happened to me like once. I was like really deep into like my meditation. I just started crying. Has it ever happened to you?
Yeah, very much, because what I'm doing is I'm regulating my nervous system and I'm coming into connection with myself, and I'm making space. I'm taking the busyness and I'm setting it aside, and I'm
Mhm.
making space for the real feelings that want to come through. And that happens very often. And that's the really vulnerable experience with meditation is, there's a joke that in the spiritual community that once you go through your awakening, you never stop awakening. You see everything. Once you see it, you can't unsee it type of
Yes.
thing. That's what meditation is. But you start to build, and trust me, I've had a lot of support, therapy, meditation groups. Like I've had a lot of support with what it looks like to come into more communion with my emotions as they come up in meditation. And now, meditation, it looks like many different things for me. I'm going to go to yoga tonight. That's a meditation for me. Regulating my nervous system, I'm reconnecting with myself. I'm going to have moments where I'm like, fuck this, I don't want to do this right now. And then I'm going to feel great at the end, and I'm going to feel really accomplished that I took the time to connect with myself and get back into my body and make room for my higher self, or my true self, my authentic self, to live and breathe through me. It's a very spiritual perspective, but that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I love that. Have you ever done, 'cause there's different types of yoga. One time I did yoga where it was kind of like teaching you how to sleep in a way.
Was it yin yoga?
I think so. Yeah, I just like
Yeah.
went with my friend. She was like, "Oh, I think we took two yoga classes that day actually." She took me to like her wellness place as a place for like as a guest. It was like really high end and cool. I was like, "Oh, this is
Oh.
awesome." And she was like, "Okay, we're gonna take two yoga classes." I'm like, "What? We're taking two yoga classes?" She's like, "Oh no, word. The other one's like a nap." I'm
Oh,
like,
you probably did yoga nidra. That's probably what you did.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
no idea. We did like a regular traditional yoga class, and then we just went next door and we did like a napping one.
Yoga Nidra is the best hack if you are tired in the middle of the day. Go
Hmm.
on YouTube and just type in Yoga Nidra 15 minutes. If you just do a Yoga Nidra, you'll feel like you took a 3 hour nap. My fiance got me hooked on to Yoga Nidra when we first started, like we were friends before we started dating.
Hmm.
And yoga nidras are the best midday like faux nap. Andrew Huberman calls it non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. He has his own forms of yoga nidras on online or something. But yeah, it's a great hack for the midday if you've got like 15, 20 minutes.
I hope everyone listening to this, they're aware of this because that sounds amazing. I'm like writing it down just because I need to know this because I mean, a lot of us struggle with like afternoon slumps. I almost took a nap today.
Yoga nidra, 20 minutes. Get an eye mask, get into bed, get comfy, set an alarm because you may fall asleep.
Yeah.
But, it works. Or
That is so beautiful. Oh my God. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I want to talk with you, Kat, about let's talk about your podcast. I like the name. Heal with
Thanks.
Kat. I think that's awesome. I feel like if mine wasn't mentally a badass, I feel like mine kind of been like Heal with Justine or so it's cute. I like it.
Thanks.
So what do you talk about on there?
We really just have open, vulnerable conversations about ancestral healing or ancestral adjacent topics. So, the first 60 episodes were all about family constellation therapy. And I was like, all right, I need something else to talk about because I'm just saying the same thing over and over, I feel like, which I wasn't, but it's like, it's all I talk about. And so I was like, I want to like expand what we're doing here. So a lot of the episodes are just me interviewing people who, like, I have a geneticist who's coming on to talk about epigenetics in a few weeks. I have somebody coming on to talk about stem cell therapy and the connection between stem cell therapy and intergenerational trauma and how to heal your body. I had somebody come on who was a acupuncturist and naturopath who used acupuncture to help people heal autoimmune disease, women specifically, and brought 6 people out of comas with just acupuncture. So we're talking about a lot of different topics, mostly health and wellness and mental health, but there's always a ancestral or familial tie to everything that we talk about. So just kind of helping the community build up their toolbox of how to navigate their family healing journey.
Have you ever done Ancestry?
Ancestry.com?
Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't. And the reason I haven't is because on my dad's side, my dad was born in Lebanon, and we
Mm-hmm.
have a pretty extensive knowledge of his family just because that's just cultural to know your grandfather's grandfather, everybody's name,
Yeah.
their stories. And my mom's dad hired somebody to do a full lineage look at his entire family back until the 1800s.
Mm.
So, no, I haven't done it, but have you?
Yes, yes, I did 'cause I was curious, and I it's so interesting because I've learned some things about myself that I had no idea. So my dad was born in Cuba, and my mom was born in America, but she Italian. And it came back as in like, oh, you're 2% Cuban. I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, what? And it's because apparently my there was a my dad told me that like I think in like the 20s, 1920s, there was a slave trade because it went back that I had a lot of like I come from like Africa, and I'm like, what?
Oh my God,
But
how
the slave
cool.
trade makes sense.
But it makes
If
sense. Yeah.
yeah, there's a slave trade, then obviously ancestors are going to be doing their thing, and eventually get to my dad, and then there's me, and it's like that is makes me think a lot. I had
Well,
no idea that that was my line.
it makes sense because then you can start putting pieces together of certain, things that your ancestors went through that may be themes continuing down into the lineage and how they're showing up in you. History is the best. History is the greatest teacher in some ways.
Yeah. And then on my mom's side was pretty interesting. So, I mean, I wasn't too shocked when it just said like Italy and said Italy and Ireland. So that one I wasn't like shocked with. But then with Ancestry, they can find like if you like upgrade, there was like a 3 months for like $3. I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then you can able to get like documents from like all those years. So I was seeing documents for like housing.
Oh my
It
God.
was so crazy. And then it dated back all the way to like 1700s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then so I learned this is actually kind of scandalous, but there was this I guess like I think like my great grandmother or whatever. I don't know how many greats it is, but she had like 8 children with like one guy, and then like one child with another guy, and those two guys were brothers.
Oh my God. The tea.
Looking at the tree, I was like putting all the trees together. And I'm like, am I looking at this correctly? And then I was like, okay, well maybe like someone died, and then
No,
like that's their company, and then I pulled up their like death certificates, and
the scandal. The scandal. Yep. Well, what's interesting is that that's probably why your family's so hush hush. Maybe there's lots of secrets no one wants to talk about.
oh my god! And I texted my cousin. I was like, "Yo, our great grandmother was like, what was she doing? What kind of trauma was she experiencing? Like, I feel like I need to go back and ask these questions." I made a joke on my Instagram, and there was this audio where it kind of sounds like you're doing. I think it's in a completely different language, but doing the Ouija board.
Oh, yeah.
So I had my blanket like over me, and then a candle, and I was around it with that audio, and it was like when you try to contact your like to see who started the trauma.
Yeah, you got to do one of those.
I need to go all the way back and say
Yeah.
like who's the person that started this? Let's go all the way back here. Oh
Yeah.
my god, it
I
was.
mean, there's so many ways to figure out. I mean, the farthest back that I've gone with looking at people's ancestors was 5 or 6 generations, and that's rare. It's usually people know like 3 generations back, and then they're like, "Yeah, I don't even know what my great grandmother's name was," and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's use family constellation therapy to figure out what's going on here."
Yeah, I can't even see much about my dad. I like they couldn't really find much. I don't know if it's because he was born in Cuba.
Hmm.
I mean,
Interesting.
Ancestry is global, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, they couldn't literally find anything. Like
Yeah.
nothing was coming up. So I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll learn about my mom. I mean, my mom has like a whole line of like severe depression and anxiety. Like the mental illness mostly comes from my mom's side.
Mm.
Like we're just talking recently about like certain cousins and uncles or whatever, and I just heard some okay, that's pretty dark. But it gets darker and darker as you go more and more back.
Well, I wonder if someone on your dad's side of the family was adopted. That usually is what happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
God, I feel like I need to know these things. Like, where can I even find this stuff? I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I'm sure
Sometimes
there's
it's good to
something.
just ask
Ask who?
anyone. Ask anyone in the family you feel open to talking about it with.
Yeah, I'm like, Dad, so who's your grandfather? Who's that person's grandfather? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, no, it was very interesting. I've learned so much. Also, it tells you like where you get certain genes from. Like, if you're a morning person, it comes from this parent. What it says maybe. It doesn't say like, oh yeah, you're guaranteed. So it kind of like lines up like where I got what from what. Like I guess my athletic ability or like my creativity. I don't know how much I felt about that though because I was looking through it and I was like, I definitely am not a morning person because it said like, oh, you're more likely to be a morning person because the gene of this. My father is a morning person. My mom is not. So I'm like, okay, I get that gene from my mom. But it was like, oh no, you're more likely to be a morning person, get it from your dad. I'm like, that is so wrong. And
Well,
like,
that's nature versus nurture though. Maybe you were
yeah.
nurtured into, being more like your mom in that way, but maybe if you embraced a morning routine, maybe you might find that it actually gives you some more pep in your step. But I think that's the nice thing is that your epigenetics is a yes and. You
Mm,
inherit certain things, but also you could be nurtured based on your environment. Those are what turn the genes on and off. So, I mean, you just kind of have to play around and see what works for you. It's hard to put us in boxes.
yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to remember. I don't think my mom really like slept late or anything like that. But if anything, my dad would always shame me for not waking up early. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. He'd be like, "Oh, how can you sleep till noon?" Or like, "Oh my," like I grew up with a lot of that, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But yeah, that was fascinating. But anyway, Kat, I appreciate you coming onto my podcast. And also, like, how are we almost at an hour? Like, I felt like we talked for like 10 minutes.
I literally feel that way too. This was a really fun conversation and super different from what I usually do, but in a really good way.
Really?
So
Okay.
thank you. Well, yeah, most of the time it's not as conversational. Sometimes it's just question and I'm answering. But no, this was wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, everyone's listening, I'm putting all of Kat's information in the description. Go check her out. She's awesome. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.